Hi, welcome to Lachlan Likes a Thing, a show where I take a thing and see whether or not I like it. Now the thing we're looking at in this video is the Audio-Technica AG1 closed back gaming headset. Now first of all, I want to thank Audio-Technica Australia for loaning me a pair of these to have a listen to. This headphone has a recommended retail price of 349 Australian dollars, though I have seen street prices go a bit lower than that. Now, in case you don't know, the AD700 from Audio-Technica was a very popular headphone in the gaming community, both because of its very comfortable fit and also because of its wide open soundstage. And for a while now, people have been taking the AD700 and the A700, which is the closed back version, and they've been doing things like adding third-party microphones to make their own gaming headsets. Now, I guess Audio-Technica finally twigged on to the fact that people have been doing this, because they finally made their own versions. We have the ATH-AG1, which is based on the AD700X, which I looked at in an earlier video, and that's the open-backed version. And this is the AG1, which is based on the A700X, and it's got a closed back, as you can see. Now, first of all, I gotta say, I think the AG1 is a really attractive looking headphone. And you've got Audio-Technica's typical attention to build quality, so everything feels very solid. I really love these kind of matte plastics, and I think Audio-Technica has gone for a design that definitely is a bit more flashy than their other headphones, but I think it's flashy without being kind of cheap and gaudy looking like a lot of other gaming headsets that I've seen. Now, the other thing that you'll probably notice immediately about the AG1, besides the awesome design, is this fancy looking headband mechanism here. And if you haven't seen this before, this is what Audio-Technica calls its 3D wing support mechanism. And it's used in basically all of their full-sized headphones. And what it basically is it's a headband mechanism that just sits on the top of your head and it doesn't require any adjustments. So you get these wings just sitting here like this. And a lot of people, myself included, really love this system because it's quite lightweight and comfortable. There are some people that this 3D wing support mechanism doesn't work for. They do report that, for instance, they'll feel like the headphone is kind of sliding down the side of their face, and I think it depends on the shape of your head, etc, etc. So I think it is worth, if you get a chance, to try out this headphone before you buy it, just to make sure that this actually works for you. As for the rest of the AG1, we have this adjustable microphone here on the end of a flexible boom pole, and we have a mute switch on the inside here. And I'll show you what that sounds like later on in the video. Now, the cabling setup on the AG1 is a bit unusual. Attached to the AG1 itself, we have this nice thick 1 meter cable that ends in a 3.5mm 4-pin connection. And then in the box, we also get a 2 meter extension cable that plugs in the end of the 3.5mm connection, and it separates out into the separate microphone and headphone inputs that go into your sound card or on your computer. As I mentioned before, the 1 meter cable on the AG1 ends in a 3.5mm 4-pin connector. And what that means is that conceivably you could connect the AG1 to a phone and use the microphone to take calls. But obviously, looking at the AG1, it is way too large to be worn outside practically. What the 4-pin connector is for you to connect it to computers that have a single port for sound where the microphone input and the headphone output are combined. And this happens a lot on laptops to save space. It's actually featured a lot on Apple computers, so this iMac has a combined port, and this connector will work. You can also connect that 4-pin connector to this little doohickey here, and this is a USB DAC/amplifier that Audio-Technica includes in the box with the AG1. And what this basically is, it's a little mini USB sound card that you plug into your computer, and then you use it to get a 4-pin output for the AG1 that'll get you the microphone input and the headphone output. Now, as you can tell from the size of this thing, it's not going to deliver a great deal of amplification to the AG1. And honestly, the AG1 doesn't require much amplification. You can plug it into a phone and it'll be quite comfortably powered by just a little phone. So the USB DAC/amp is only really for two scenarios. The first scenario is you have a really poor quality output from your computer, so it's noisy or it just sounds terrible. You can use the DAC/amp to kind of hopefully improve the sound quality a little. Your other scenario is if you just don't have convenient access to the outputs on your computer. So you can use this DAC/amp to convert one of your USB ports to a sound output, and you can use the AG1 with that. Now, Keep in mind that this is just a simple little thing. It's not going to support the vast array of kind of 3D processing audio technologies that a lot of dedicated gaming sound cards have. This is more just to give you a bit more flexibility. Now this brings me to my one main complaint about the AG1. I think the 1 meter cable attached to the AG1 is just a bit too short to be used comfortably when you're connected to your computer. Even if you're plugging it into a laptop or into the DAC/amp with a USB port nearby, I just think 1 meter is just too short and you feel a bit anchored to your computer as a result. I would have kind of preferred it if they used a 1.5 meter cable attached to the AG1 and then gave you a 1.5 meter extension cable. Now as far as comfort goes, I think the AG1 is a very comfortable headphone as long as you get along with the 3D wing mechanism. The AG1 uses synthetic leather ear pads, unlike the velour ear pads found on the ATH-AG1 and the rest of the AD series headphones from Audio-Technica. Now I do think the synthetic leather ear pads are quite soft and supple, but they aren't as breathable or as comfortable as the velour ear pads. And combined with a closed back, obviously these aren't going to be as breathable as an open headphone. That said, the internal volume on the ear cup is quite large, so you do get a pretty breathable fit. Now in terms of noise isolation, the AG1 does block out a fair bit of external noise. It's not fantastic in terms of noise isolation, but that's obviously not really that much of an issue because you're not going to be wearing these on a subway train or on a plane or something. So in just kind of an office environment, these aren't going to let out a lot of noise, these aren't going to let in a lot of noise, so you're pretty much covered there. As far as sound quality for the AG1 goes, the AG1 does sound very similar to how I remember the A700X and the A900X sounding. So the AG1 sounds very lively, has a lively, dynamic, kind of glossy sound to it that is really fun to listen to. So in particular, it has a V-shaped kind of sound signature, and that means that it has an emphasis on the low end with the bass and on the high end with the treble. Now at the low end, I think the bass on the AG1 is done really well. It's got an equal mix of sub-bass and mid-bass, so it doesn't sound bloated, it doesn't sound sleepy, it just sounds punchy and dynamic and fun. And it's definitely got better bass impact than the open-backed versions of these headphones from Audio-Technica. Now on the high end, in terms of treble, the AG1 sounds glossy and exciting, so at times it really has that classic kind of Audio-Technica signature to it. It does really well with female vocals. But at other times I do think the S notes can sound a bit harsh on the AG1. So in particular, if you're already listening to something that is already mastered a bit harsh or a bit hot, the AG1 will emphasize it and it will sound just a bit aggressive to my ears. And that's probably my second biggest complaint about the AG1. I do find that the open-backed versions of the AD700X and the AD900X don't have as much problem with the sibilance and the S notes that the AG1 has. As far as soundstage goes, the AG1 has a nice open, wide soundstage for a closed-back headphone. So it sounds quite spacious, but again, it's not going to be completely open sounding like the AD series of Audio-Technica headphones. You do sometimes get a sense of internal reflections from the ear cups, the sound bouncing back into your ears. It's not a huge problem, and obviously this is always going to be the trade-off of a closed-back headphone. In return, you do get better bass impact and the sound isolation from a closed-back headphone. So for gaming and movies on the AG1, the things that really stand out about the sound are low-frequency effects like explosions and that kind of thing. And also dialogue, voice chat, that kind of thing tends to sound more pronounced on the AG1. So as far as gaming headphones go, this is probably the most important thing. And the AG1 is definitely fit for purpose in that regard. You get a sense of visceral impact without everything being muddied up and losing out on the detail. One thing to note though is that at lower volumes it's quite easy to hear voice chat, etc. At higher volumes, if the other person's microphone is already a bit harsh, the AG1 will emphasize that, so it might be a bit irritating. As for how the microphone on the AG1 sounds, what you're hearing right now is being recorded on the microphone of the AG1 plugged into the amp/DAC that comes with the AG1. And as you can hear, everything sounds very clear and really nice. You want to move the microphone close to your mouth but not too close so you don't get those plosive P sounds. Apart from that, everything sounds really good, and I'd be more than happy with this microphone for any sort of normal voice chat. So overall, who do I think the AG1 is for? Well, I think the AG1 sounds lively and exciting, but for longer periods of listening, I would prefer an open-backed headphone, like the ATH-AG1, because you get a more comfortable, more open, breathable fit, and you also get a cleaner, more wide soundstage. If that's not an option, you have to use a closed-back headphone, I think the AG1 is a solid choice. But if you are sensitive to high-frequency treble, I would consider looking at something like the Beyerdynamic Custom 1 Pro, which offers similar sound quality to the AG1, but it's more relaxed in the treble. You can use Beyerdynamic's own microphone attachment to convert this into a gaming headset. And you can check out my review of these on my channel. I've linked it in the description of this video. If you already know that you like a more lively vocal sound, or you already like Audio-Technica's house sound, I would take a look at these. These are a solid gaming headset option. Just make sure that the 3D wing system is going to work for you. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Please click the like button if you found it helpful and subscribe to my channel for more reviews. You can talk to me on Facebook at facebook.com/LachlanLikesAthing or on Twitter at LachLikesAthing. I'm looking forward to your comments, and thanks to all my regular subscribers. Also, check out my spreadsheet, my Google Drive spreadsheet, where I've listed all my reviews, and you can see what I've recommended and what I haven't, and you can use that quite easily to check out the rest of my reviews. And happy listening!